Hello everyone, my name is Meghan LeVota, and today I'm going to be sharing with you guys, as an ENFJ, some things that I've learned about life and some observations and inspiration that I have learned from the ENFP. And I thought, what better type to do today than ENFP, because I'm currently in Santa Clarita, California, just hanging out, because I'm visiting my best friend who's an ENFP. And I just spent the last 2 days, well really, I got in like Thursday, but I spent the last 2 days exploring the LA area with her, and I haven't seen her in over a year. And even though we talk on the phone like every day, I was just really reminded of how important and impactful the ENFP is, the combination of NE and FI together, and how inspiring that is for someone like me that doesn't consciously use those functions. Just being in her presence when I haven't for a while just really reminded me how important they are. So before I even really get into this video, I just want to say straight up that if you are an ENFP and you don't feel like valued for what you have to offer, that doesn't mean that you aren't. And I think a lot of times ENFPs just seem to be so hard on themselves. They really just want everyone that they love to live perfectly happy, amazing lives. And I can just tell that they are so hurt when the people that they love are hurt. And it breaks my heart because you guys are just so naturally empathetic with the way that you, whenever you have decided that someone is in your inner circle, you just completely take their pain on you and carry it. And that's a lot to hold on you. And I know I do something very similar as an ENFJ. There are a lot of similarities about just being ENFs, but man, the way that ENFPs are empathetic is so different than the way that I naturally am. So I actually got in like a fight with my friend the other day, but every time that we get into fights, we always get over it because we're both so committed to understanding the other. But I realized something big, and that is, she's told me before that she has a hard time remembering that I am not high maintenance and that I am not manipulative, because for her, based on some of her past experiences, me being an ENFJ and seeing the way that my FE looks, it seems high maintenance, and it seems manipulative. And even though she'll go completely out of her way to explain to other people how I really am, and she'll see me for who I really am, it's still hard for her sometimes to shake that NE impression. And we got in a fight, and it was because I was telling her something vulnerable. I was just like saying, man, I feel like I looked really ugly in that picture, and I don't normally have these sort of body issues, so that's weird. And I was just sort of like, man, that's weird that I feel bad about myself right now. And she got really reactive to me saying that, and I wasn't sure why, honestly. And she yelled at me, and I don't really want to go into that. But then I just looked at her and I realized how much in pain she was because I was in pain. And I realized the reason why she was rude to me was because it was so hard for her to not be able to fix my problem. I think that ENFJs are really empathetic too, but ENFJs are able to be like, oh, well, that's not my problem. I did what I could do. And I think that ENFPs, they want to solve your problem. And it's painful for them to not be able to solve the problem. And I don't know if this even makes sense, but I just had so much empathy for her in that moment, even though she was maybe being rude to me. I knew it was because She was so frustrated with herself for not being able to solve my problem. And I think ENFPs are like that. They, I don't know, like their FI is so powerful. Something else that she did that I think is extremely powerful is, I don't know, she tweeted something that was vulnerable and somebody liked it, and I noticed that she kept looking back at the notifications that she's already looked at, and that was confusing to me. I was like, you already looked at the notification, why are you looking again? But it was because she wanted the validation that someone understood. And I think that's really incredibly brave. Sorry, I'm pacing. I think that's incredibly brave to acknowledge. Like, I don't know if you guys realize that that's very FI to like acknowledge your vulnerability in that way, and then acknowledge how much you appreciate being validated. I think that FJs can like pretend like everything's fine and convince ourselves that everything is fine, but ENFPs are just incredibly real with themselves about what's going on. I apologize if this video is not, I don't know. I just feel like I love ENFPs so much that I really don't know how to explain the impact that they made in a way that is concise and in a way that makes sense. But at the same time, like, any NTPs watching this or any TI users watching this might not understand what I'm saying, but I feel like the NFPs will. I just feel like I'm at a loss for words. I'm not really using good TI right now. But ENFPs, they know how to have hope, and they know how to dream, and they know that even if things suck, as long as they have hope, they still have hope. And it takes a lot of emotional effort to have hope when you don't know if something's going to work out. But the ENFP will have hope, because why wouldn't you? I don't know. It's hard to have hope. It's hard to want something. And it's hard to feel everything with your whole heart and to take risks. The reason why ENFJs take emotional risks is because we don't feel it as strongly. We are emotional, but we're emotional in the fact that we take emotional risks, and we're very aware of our emotional lives, and we control our emotional lives. We aren't emotional in the way that introverted feeling is. And every time that ENFPs do something for themselves, like they treat themselves, or they take a risk for themselves, or they go after an opportunity, I'm always just so inspired. It's beautiful to watch. It just warms my heart. I don't really know how else to explain it. It's because they aren't just, I think as an ENFJ, I could like acknowledge I want something and then go for it, but I have to sort of detach from how much I want it in order to go for it. But ENFPs can't detach from how much they want something. They feel it. Like, it's distracting for them. ENFPs can't see the world through the lens of their emotions. Something I've told to Crystal before is that I feel like she's so powerful because all she sees is her desires and her fears. I think that's what it's like to be an ENFP, is that you literally feel like your world is a matrix, and that everything you feel is gonna just be reflected back onto you. You don't live in the sensory world where things are constant. When you are an ENFP, your world is magical. Your world is a story. And not everyone's world is like that. And it took me having an ENFP in my life for my life to be magical. My life wasn't magical before. It's ENFPs that view the world as a story and as magical. And it's because they follow their desires. It's impossible to have a story and for life to be magical if you don't go after your desires. And it's not just the happy times, it's the fearful times. It's your fear and your desire. Both of those are FI. It's the good and the bad. And you need both, and that's why it's so magical. Like when you do get what you want, because you feel your fears that much stronger that much stronger as well, more than other people. You feel your fears reflected back onto you, and you can see your wildest dreams reflected back onto you. Like I said, you don't live, if you're an ENFP, you don't live in the sensory world. You don't use SE. All you see is your perception reflected back onto you. And that's pretty cool because you're an alchemist, you know? You can do whatever you want. You are not bound by SE, what you see in front of you. You live in a world of possibilities and you get to pick your wildest dreams. And if I can do anything with my ENFJ explaining powers, it would be to motivate ENFPs to go after their dreams, because they have so much power. And if I had half the power of an ENFP, then I would not be where I am right now. And I'm not jealous of ENFPs. I know that I have my own skill with FE and NI, but man, I just want you ENFPs to believe in yourself, because you literally can create your reality. I'm sorry, I'm crying. You literally can create your reality because the way you work is with NE and FI. And so everything's possible, and all you have to do is just choose your FI. Have your FI pick what reality you want. You're in control of it. I know you don't feel that way, but oh my gosh, like ENFPs magnify and amplify all of the positive emotions around them, because they're not bound by what makes sense, and they're not bound by what you see. They're bound by what their dreams are. And ENFPs have more power than any other type to make their dream a reality. All you have to do is decide to do it. And that's the hard part for an ENFP, is because you don't have SE to decide. And I know that's hard, but you can go farther than most people, because it's almost like your battery, or like your emotional energy is just more. You just feel more deeply. You have more desires. You have more fears. And that's what sort of balances it out for most ENFPs, is that the fears almost manifest as obstacles. That's why ENFPs, why your life is so magical, because you literally keep manifesting obstacles and desires. A lot of people have pretty boring lives. Honestly, I would say the exact opposite of you would be like an STP, ESTP, or ISTP. They don't have magical lives in that way. Like, I'm not saying ESTPs can't have great lives. A lot of them do. But ESTPs don't have these sort of weird drama back and forth, like, oh, he liked me and then he didn't, and then this happened, and then the craziest thing happened. Like, those sort of storytelling, like, wild stories. I don't know how else to describe it. ESTPs don't do that because they're more bound by their sensory reality. So, I don't know. I guess this isn't really like me. I feel like this isn't really fitting the series, but I hope that you guys can at least get the vibe of how my life has been impacted by an ENFP, because I think that's the most important part after all. And I also think that you guys as ENFPs probably care more about getting the intuitive sense about your impact than more specific things that has happened to me. But let me try and think of a little bit more before I end this video is ENFPs have taught me that my negative emotions are okay, because the way that they are able to sit with your positive emotions, they're also able to sit with their fears, and they're also able to forgive you whenever they understand the dark parts of humanity. And I've talked about this in INFP videos before, but ENFPs are similar, clearly, but they, as extroverts, are able to sort of pierce through you and are bold enough to share whenever they notice those things, where INFPs might just be more respectful of like letting you come to your own conclusions. I'm not saying that ENFPs aren't respectful, but specifically, I was dating a guy that I didn't really like, and I knew it wasn't gonna last forever. And I was like, I have to stay with him because we both bought tickets to visit his mom in Minneapolis for New Year's Eve. And it was my ENFP friend that grilled me and was like, so that's the only reason you're staying with him? So you don't like him? And I was like, well, I mean, I do like him. And I was just doing like the FE thing where I felt trapped. I didn't know how to say it. I wanted to be a good person. I did love him. I did want the best for him, but I didn't know how to actually do what was the best for him or what was the best for me, because I was too afraid to interrupt the FE flow. It was my ENFP friend that explained to me that that's not truly loving someone. Doing something because you feel you have to is not really loving someone. And she really just gave me like the harsh reality about what really loving someone is, and helped refine my FI. She taught me to look within at my own patterns and not blame other people for my situations, and really look at, how did I attract this? What did I do? And I mean, I'm kind of looking at what did I do, but sometimes whenever I am the victim in a situation, I don't, like whenever I know that it wasn't my fault, when I was the victim in the situation, I don't look at like, what can I have done to avoid being a victim next time? And I think that she, like Crystal, and like I do have other NFP friends, ENFPs will focus more on how can you make inner peace with it yourself? How could you decide internally that it's gonna be okay, and how could you make peace with it and not have hatred or sadness or anything in your heart? ENFJs will try and make peace by talking to the person, using FE and trying to come to a common ground, but to an ENFP, they care about what's in your heart. Do you feel okay with the situation? Is everything right internally? Have you forgiven them? Not because they deserve it, but because it will feel better to forgive them. Have you forgiven yourself? Have you made peace with yourself? That's what I think ENFP's influence has been to me, is really wanting to make sure that my FI is okay with me. And when I say my FI, I know that might be confusing, because I don't know. I mean, we all use all the functions, like I said. I know that I don't prefer FI, but in socionics, FI is my ignoring function. And ENFPs help me see what I ignore, because FI does have a lot of control over my life as a feeler first. It really does control my life in a lot of ways. But I choose to ignore it, but I feel it, but I still choose to ignore it. It's different than a blind spot and a point of least resistance. Seventh function, it controls my life. It controls how I act. I just am not always aware of it. And so that's why it's so helpful. It's even more helpful to me personally for ENFPs to explain those sort of things, because INFPs and ISFPs, they are so FI that they almost don't even know how to explain it, but like an ENFP, to me personally, have been able to explain and point out to me when something is not right within me, whenever I don't have peace with myself. I was looking at an old journal from like 3 years ago, and it was about an ex, and I was like, I literally cannot stop thinking about this one time. And I like described a sexual encounter that apparently I couldn't stop thinking about. That was 3 years ago. And I looked at it last week and I was like, I don't remember that. And I was just so shocked that there was a moment in my life that apparently a few years ago I couldn't get out of my head, and now I quite literally couldn't remember that time at all. And I told Crystal, my ENFP friend, about this, and she was like, I literally cannot believe that you forgot that. And she was telling me how she always remembers those things. And she says that sometimes what she does for fun is looks through her old journals and tries to think about how far she's come. And that is a lot of FI. That's hard work, to work your FI and to really feel how far have I come, to really feel the painful things. Honestly, whenever I've experienced rejection and trauma in my life, my goal is to process it, to make things right with the other person, and to get up and keep going and to make life better in the future. But ENFPs, they want to be right with themselves. They want to process it. They want to feel it. They don't run away from the feeling the way that sometimes ENFJs do. ENFJs would rather just go and create a better reality tomorrow, as opposed to feeling it right now and being okay with the negative. ENFPs seem a lot darker, honestly, to me. But they also have this really good balance of like negative and positive emotions, where sometimes ENFJs can just chase the positive emotions and be afraid of the negative. And so yeah, I guess to wrap this up, that really is it. ENFPs really have helped me understand the reasons behind why I have negative emotions, and just to be more comfortable in my own skin and to really focus on just making things right with myself. So thank you so much for watching this video. Comment below if there is a type that you'd like me to do next. And also please join my Facebook group, Personality Typology for Self-Growth. Link in the description. We have lots of conversations there about cognitive functions. I would love to hear from you, and have a wonderful day.